friends, this is Tinka. So today we are going through a work vlog of my upcoming cosplay, which is going to be Suki from Avatar. So actually my relationship with Avatar is kind of weird because I didn't grow up with it. When I was in high school, all my friends are like, "What? You haven't watched Avatar? You're gonna love it!" So they actually tried to get me to watch it, but they were pretty determined to have like an all-night binge watching party, and I hate staying up all night, so I didn't retain most of it. Years later, actually around this time last year, me and my friend have decided to sit down and get through Avatar together. So I would go over to their house after work every so often, and we will watch a couple episodes because that's how I watch shows. I'm really bad at binging things for some reason. Yeah, so that's my weird relationship with Avatar, and I'm really excited to cosplay from it because it is just a really good show. It's just very well done, and the characters are great, and the world building is awesome. Today we're going to be going over the kind of outer kimono as well as the crown headpiece that she wears. So another disclaimer, I am not a professional for anything. I just try my best to go through life, and as you will soon see, I've made a lot of mistakes on the way. So yeah, let's just jump into it. That's too pale. It's way too dark. That's way too bright. A picture of Suki has a completely different color scheme, and it's killing me. What? Every single different picture of her is a different color. Drives me crazy. The color of the kimonos are so specific. It's like dusty, but kind of bright and dark, but not too dark and not too light. So it was hard for me to find some fabric that I liked. So when I found it, I decided to dye it. Now it's a completely cotton fabric, so it should dye well, I hope. So here I have my big bucket of water. I'm gonna do this outside, but I kind of want to start it in here because I have salt and stuff. I found some salt. So I got the powder dye. This one's annoying because it doesn't dissolve completely in whatever concoction you're making. It's there's a chance that you get like a blotchy finish. So I'm just gonna mix this real well. I did a test piece. This is the original. Kind of see the difference. I actually quite like that. So I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna go with a couple minutes. So now I have to put this whole thing in there and mix it around forever. So yeah, this dyeing job was like one of the most chaotic things that I've ever gone through. Like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but it turned out really good. It was the exact color I wanted, and it was not blotchy at all. I was quite proud of myself for like my first real dye job. I had invited my friend over because she's working on Azula, and we thought that it'd be fun if we can work on our Avatar cosplays while watching Avatar. And as any movie night that I ever have goes, I needed to make some themed snacks, so I made some fire flakes.
They're too salty and they're not good.
They're okay. They weren't like over salted. I think they'd be totally fine. And they're not that bad salty. They're like kind of salty. Trying to figure out certain patterns. There are like a kimono and then like a robe or like a dress. And I only need the dress one, but I need sleeves on it. If they don't have sleeve patterns, this is one of the reasons why I use patterns in the first place. Okay. Alright, so we had some issues with all of this. I didn't have enough room. I bought 3 yards of fabric. I think I definitely needed 4 though. I don't think my sleeves are going to be as like big and billowy as I want them to.
Yeah.
It was so hard to get everything to fit, but I did after kind of finagling some things here and there. But it ended up working out, which is really great because I had dyed that fabric, so there was no like buying a second bunch and like hoping for the best. Like I would not be able to dye the same exact color twice. It's me. That fabric color, I think I did well. Yeah. I used the instructions for the pattern to put it together. Then I did a quick fitting and jumped into the long neck piece that went around the front of the kimono and around the back of my neck, making sure to iron this so it can stay nicely. I also didn't have any interfacing lying around, or at least not as much as I needed for like my full length of my neck piece. So I ended up interfacing it with pleather because I have a lot of pleather laying around because I really love working with pleather. It actually worked really well. It is very sturdy and it keeps its shape. So this pattern didn't have sleeves. I was just like, that's why I decided to use a pattern, because I didn't feel like patterning out sleeves. But it didn't, so I just patterned out my own sleeves. I kept it super simple and it turned out surprisingly well. The mock-up looked really good, so I seam ripped that and cut out the same shape on my sleeve fabric. Now, as earlier discussed, the sleeves were not as poofy as I wanted them, so I added kind of a slit of other fabric to them. They can just have more room, and I actually think it turned out really good. You can't really see it because it's like under my arm right here. Suki's dress has a gap in front where you see the skirt underneath. To get this, I just tried it on a million times and kept fitting it until it sat right. Next was gathering the sleeves. First, I kind of took a piece of my fabric and measured out the width of my forearm where I wanted to sit, which is around here. I took that, used that length as kind of the length that I need to gather my puffy sleeves to. I gathered them with machine, and I kind of hid the gathers within the little tape that I had. There was 4 dress ties in total, and I hand sewed them on. When that was done, I did another fitting. I used tape and chalk to pattern out my sleeve designs. I took this and I transferred it onto the same fabric that I used for my dress. This was 2 pieces of fabric, which I sewed together along my pattern, flipped it right sides out, and this created a very clean pattern that I can just hand sew to my dress. Put them on, and then my kimono was finished. I spent some time hand sewing these on. It was quite fun to hand sew. I kind of like this kind of project. It's not like perfect, but you know, it looks pretty good. Moving on to the crown. I love making little accessories, especially if they're not sewing. For the crown, I decided that I'm going to use my tried and true craft foam as the base. First, we have to create a pattern. So this, I have some just paper lying around that I doodled out around what I need and kept putting it up to my forehead to make sure that it fits. So after I got a basic size and shape that I liked, I cut out the pieces in craft foam. I used a very thin craft foam. You can get quite a bit of this in like a big sheet at Michael's. I used 2 pieces and I hot glued them together using a heat gun to A, shape the foam, and B, make sure there wasn't any like weird hot glue bumps where you can kind of get with like super thin foam. Then I used a thicker piece of EVA foam. Again, it was just like a scrap from an armor project I did earlier, and I cut it out. It's about a credit card shape, and you can kind of put it on your forehead. I wanted a thicker foam here, A, to just kind of give some security, and B, to give some dimension. I actually used some foam core that I had lying around. I just kind of cut it out with an X-Acto and put everything together. If you're making this, I would not suggest to put these two pieces together now. I think you should paint everything first and then attach it, because as you can see, I'm having some issues getting to all the places, making sure everything's painted correctly. So first I primed this with some Plasti Dip. I'm still not the biggest fan of Plasti Dip. It just sometimes it bubbles, and, you know, it comes with its own set of issues. It's also super toxic. Now, I didn't really like how this first layer looked. I think I should have hit it with a couple more layers of Plasti Dip to make everything really nice and smooth, because you can totally see just kind of pores and everything in it. So I decided to sand that down. Another tip about armor is just sand everything. So much sanding, and then maybe it'll look good. To support lighting, I'm spray painting outside at nighttime. So, this is the current crown. So on video it kind of looks good. If you get close, you can see like some scratches and stuff, some breaks, because before when I was spraying it, I was spraying it with two not curved enough. So now I've like let it sit curved and it looks much better. I also did not like the finish that was happening. I was just not getting like some of this texture out. So I decided to actually hit it with a couple layers of Mod Podge. I actually quite like working with Mod Podge as like a primer base. I think it gives a really good texture, and especially if you get like the glossy one, you want like a shiny one. So what I'm doing is actually I'm going to spray this with one more layer of spray paint, and then I'm going to do another layer of Mod Podge, and then just like thoroughly let it dry. So after that is just weathering. Suki's back layer is a little darker than kind of her front credit card layer, so I just kind of painted the credit card layer a lighter gold and weathered the whole thing. Finally, I needed to attach her like strap to keep it on my head, as well as little dangly bits. So before, I tried to glue fabric to foam and just kind of hope for the best. But this did not work as well as I wanted it to. So I finally Googled foam attachments, and Punish Props has a video where they tell you to use nylon webbing to attach things to foam. Just nylon webbing and hot glue. Like, you don't need any like weird toxic glues or anything. It's just hot glue and nylon webbing. God, I used this whole thing for a Maya and it was so great. So I took some nylon webbing and sewed it onto the headband that I made, and then I glued that nylon webbing to the headpiece, and it turned out really well. Alright, so that was part one of my Suki vlogs. There's gonna be some more coming up, so subscribe if you want to stick around for those. Also follow me on Instagram. I post a lot of stuff on there too. So yeah, bye. Center, square, rectangle, and oh god. Okay, so I wanted to get a wig that would work for Suki for this little segment, but I didn't have one. All the wigs that at all would have been kind of similar to hers had like bangs, like short bangs that wouldn't be able to hide back. So another tip at the end of the video is that I took a wig and I tied my own bangs into it with a little bit of bobby pins and some hairspray. Can make it blend decently nicely in.